You're listening to A Catholic's Perspective with the Religious Hippie. That's me, the podcast all about being a young Catholic surviving in a secular world. Around here, we pray first, pop off second. Whether you're struggling, thriving, or somewhere in between, this podcast is for you. So grab an iced coffee and let's chat. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the pod. I hope you guys are all doing well. I know it's been a little bit of a hot minute, but that's totally fine. You know what? Things happen. Life happens. But today I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about what happens when God tells you no, because I feel like there are so many people, and myself included, but I've gotten so many emails about like, what do I do when God tells me no? I feel so disappointed, etc., etc., etc. So I do want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about like my life and things that will hopefully help you understand, because like my whole life, guys, I've been a people pleaser, okay? I constantly have worried about what other people think of me, how I'm perceived by people, like feeling kind of like I need people to like me, and to constantly just get reassurance from people who do not even know me, might I add, that basically like I'm doing the right thing. Like I just need that reassurance. I need to feel like people like me, etc. And I know a lot of my friends, and probably actually a lot of you guys, I consider you guys my friends. So I'm sure there's a lot of you guys who have also faced this whole situation. And I think it's been exacerbated by social media and the need for constant affirmation and attention. Now, I'm not saying that just because you have social media that you struggle with people-pleasing tendencies or anything like that, or that you're a narcissist or, well, anything like that. But I am saying that it's something to definitely look out for, because it's something that I've definitely struggled with. So I'm sure you guys have struggled with it too, on either the same level or a different level than I have. And I'm not going to like sit on my high horse here and tell you guys that I'm totally perfect and I have everything figured out, you know. Just consider this podcast more of like a vent session, maybe a place where hopefully you feel heard in your own struggles, and hopefully you'll be able to find some encouragement to, you know, just find the solutions to the problems that you're facing too. You know, I feel like I take a lot of different approaches to help with healing and growth, but those two things, healing and growth, they just take a lot of time. Okay, it's slow. And as much as I would really love it for those things to just kind of happen overnight, boom, I'm fixed, I've grown, I've not physically. I don't want to grow anymore physically. I feel like I'm the perfect height. But you know, to grow mentally and spiritually and all of that, it just doesn't happen overnight. I wish it did, but it doesn't. And it's just kind of like this slow burn that over time, you know, the slow burn kind of helps you mature and to gain perspective. And there's been a lot that has helped me to mature over the last 3 years, you know, between my dad's cancer diagnosis and of course getting married. I didn't realize how much I truly had changed in such a short amount of time. And you know, looking back through my prayer journals and watching old videos of mine, it just really put into perspective the girl that I used to be. And you know, looking back through my prayer journals and watching old videos, it just really put into perspective the girl I was compared to the woman I am today. I mean, I hardly recognize myself, and yet I love the person that I've become. She feels more down to earth, more balanced, more empathetic, maybe even, but like not in the toxic kind of empathy way, you know, hate toxic empathy. I just feel like I'm kind of mellowing out, so to speak, but in a good way. And I feel like things flew by just so quickly over the last 3 years that I could just hardly process anything that was going on. And things are still pretty rough, you know, especially with my dad. I'm actually taking a train in a couple days to go visit. My sister's actually coming in too. My dad is officially bedridden, and we just don't know what to expect. But I want to be there to support them, my family. So I can only assume that there will be more changes and more things to process and to figure out as time goes on. So please just keep my father in your prayers, and my family too, because I mean, I'll be honest, I've always been the one that wants to run away from situations. I never liked confrontation. I never liked dealing with heavy topics, but sometimes you just can't run away from them, you know? And even though I wanted to run away in so many different situations, I would force myself to stay for other people because I loved them, or because I knew that it was the right thing to do. Staying was the right thing to do. But the temptation was definitely still there. All right, guys, really quick before we continue on with the podcast episode, I first want to tell you guys about our sponsor today, Gloria Patri Coffee. If you guys are looking for a Catholic coffee company to support, this is the Catholic coffee company for you. Max and I consider ourselves to be coffee snobs, and therefore we are very, very picky about the quality of our coffee, how we make it, etc. So you guys can trust us to tell you guys what is and isn't good coffee. But no matter how you like to brew your coffee, whether it's in a Mr. Coffee maker, or you like to do specialty drinks like Max and I like to do in our espresso machine, this coffee will be perfect for all types of coffee. So check them out today and get a Trinity box so that you can taste them for yourself, and you can use my promo code HIPPIE10 at checkout to get a discount too. Okay, back to the episode. Actually, before I met my husband in July of 2022, before my dad's diagnosis, before true adult, air quote, life kicked in, I had this dream of buying a van, of renovating it, and taking it across the United States with my dog, Dixie May. I had an entire roadmap, kind of figured out where I wanted to go, where I wanted to camp and everything. I had a van picked out, and I had the money even set aside to just kind of leave everything and everybody behind. I was just so ready to get out of that small town and to just go experience life. But I had this plan of just going completely radio silent and just head for the Colorado mountains and just leave everybody and everything in the dust. But God clearly had other plans. Thanks, God. Though, I must say, I still have that itch to, take a van out and to explore and whatnot. But I would obviously want to take my husband with me. He's my best friend. I want to take him everywhere with me. And it's actually something that we've seriously discussed. Even if we can't get a van to do quote unquote like van life, neither of us really like tight spaces like that anyways. So we've definitely talked more about the travel side of things and where we would want to go, road trips we would want to do, camping spots we want to try. And I've always been more of the outdoorsy one in the relationship, but Max has really kind of come to love the outdoors through watching me enjoy the outdoors. And he's realized his own need for nature and travel, especially after we stargaze for hours or we take a long hike to decompress from city life and from work and things like that. So anyways, okay, so with that being said, I think there are a lot of situations where we have a plan, but God has a greater plan. Unfortunately, that sometimes means telling us no, especially to things that we really feel like we want, so that He can give us something better. So when I was ready to take off, to the Colorado mountains, the only thing that kept me in Chicago was Max. Like I said, we met in July of 2022, and we became better friends around September of 2022, like the end of September. And at that time, I was actually in a relationship, but things weren't the best. They weren't going very well. But I still tried making it work until I realized I couldn't force this person to be somebody he wasn't. I couldn't force him to be the person I needed him to be, and I knew that no amount of pleading or begging would make him the man that I needed. And so I ended things in October. And that was actually a really, really rough month for me, trying to rediscover who I was without this guy who I'd been best friends with and basically dated since I was 15. It was a really dark and difficult time for me trying to figure all of that out. And I just realized I needed to get my priorities straight. So I started writing out what I wanted in a guy. I wanted a man of God, ideally Catholic, but at that time I really wasn't too picky as long as he had a relationship with God and it was a strong relationship. But I wanted someone who could lead, not just physically and mentally, but also spiritually. So I ended up writing out this whole list, things that were deal breakers and things that were more like, oh, this would be nice, but it's not necessary. And then as time went on and I did spiritual direction, I realized the man I needed had been right in front of me this entire time. Okay, it was Max, and I don't know why I didn't see it sooner, but one day I went to Mass and I was just standing in line for confession and he joined me and we just stood there. But I don't know, somehow that just having him next to me in confession, I didn't have to drag him to Mass. He came on his own. I didn't have to pull him into the confession line. I didn't have to explain my faith to him or defend it to him. Somehow, just realizing all of that lifted the veil from my eyes, and I realized he was the guy and not the guy from, Spy Kids 3. Shout out to anyone if you guys remember that. He's the guy. The guy. Anyways, now imagine how flabbergasted I was realizing this, because I genuinely didn't think men like him existed in the Catholic world. Look, okay, I might catch some heat for saying that, but I dated some Catholic guys here and there, and I have heard too many horror stories from my friends. The options are just not great. And, I've been friends with some Catholic women that are just interesting, to say the least. So I get it, okay? The optics aren't great on either side. The options are a little slim. But basically, okay, what I'm getting at here is that when God closes a door that you've tried to prop open for years, it's because he genuinely has something better for you. You need to trust him and let that door slam shut. Maybe it was a dream, maybe a relationship, a job, a goal. It could literally be anything, okay, that you can think of. We don't see it right now because we're in the midst of the struggle. But if we trust God to guide us and we climb that mountain, that struggle mountain, we'll be able to see the full picture when we reach the peak. So if you feel like God is constantly telling you no, it is because there is a greater thing waiting for you. But that doesn't mean it's going to be what we expect or what we necessarily want. We need to align our wills with God's perfect will. Okay, that's easier said than done. I will admit that. I still struggle with this sometimes. And I think the only thing that really helps, at least for me, is the litany of humility and the litany of trust. We just have to kind of get used to not always getting what we want when we want it, which is simultaneously easy and yet very difficult in today's world. But I bet you guys can think of at least one time where you thought things weren't going to work out and then it did. Not every situation's going to feel like that, but I know we've all experienced at least one situation like that if we're being honest. And I highly suggest that you guys start keeping a prayer journal if you guys don't already have one, and just write in it daily. Write hopes and dreams, decisions, whether they're big or small, any worries or joys, just everything. Write it down because you won't realize it, but a few years from now, a lot of those prayers will be answered, okay? You just might not recognize it because it's not what you were expecting. And I also want to say it's totally okay if you're disappointed or upset about a situation not working out. That's only human and it's perfectly normal. I feel like too many people think they have to be completely happy or fine when God tells them no, and that's just not the case. Okay, how many saints were unsure, scrupulous, or felt lost when following God's will? I mean, basically all of them. So don't feel like you have to be fine with everything all the time. God understands, okay? He understands our human emotions. He gave them to us, and he has emotions too. We were literally made in his image and likeness. The only thing is that we just can't let our emotions control us. That is the main kicker, I guess you could say. Actually, you guys know that song, Mama's Broken Heart by, I think it's Miranda Lambert. I use that song often to describe how it feels sometimes when people expect you to be fine, but you're just objectively not okay. Now, okay, don't go burning down someone's house or doing drugs, okay, kids? Not cool. But at the same time, it's totally understandable to be upset and angry. Just don't hurt people who are trying to help you in the process. And if you do, make sure you are apologizing sincerely and not making excuses. But anyways, actually, I think even stepping back from the ministry kind of felt like a door I had been propping open for a really long time that God had been trying to close for a while. I kind of lost sight of a lot of things, mainly because, I mean, this isn't an excuse for my own behavior, but one of the things that I noticed and reflected on was the creator space just changed so much, and the people were, a lot of people, not all of them, of course, I have some great friends in the creator space, but a lot of people were more interested in the money aspect than authentically living out their faith, and that really affected me and how I saw my ministry. I felt behind, I felt like I wasn't doing enough, and I just ended up getting really, really burnt out. And I talked about that, I think actually in an episode 2 episodes ago, like a couple weeks ago. But the point is that it's just like, I want it to be organic. I want it to be authentic again, and I don't really know what that looks like yet. I know in like 2 episodes ago, I talked about how I was never going to return to YouTube again. I'm going back and forth on that. The more distance that I get from this corporate steel cut idea of what content creation is supposed to look like according to certain people and certain really, really big creators and things like that, the more distance I get from that, the more I realize, like, actually, I don't need to be like that. But that also doesn't mean I can go back to how it was, where I was constantly pumping out content, you know, almost daily, and because that was not good for my mental health. So, you know, I'm still trying to figure that out. And I think it just starts with me not overworking myself, just kind of having a break. And with everything going on with my dad, this is really the time that I need to reassess and take care of my family, make sure that I'm doing the right things for myself, for my family, because then if I take care of all of that, you guys are better taken care of. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's kind of like put on your own oxygen mask before helping others situation. So with that though, I've also started on like this new passion project of mine, and only you guys listening to this podcast know about that yet. I don't want to say anything because I've really, really been enjoying this project, and I have a lot of passion behind it, and I'm almost afraid of sharing it because once you put a piece of yourself out there, once you put a vulnerable piece of yourself out there, it's basically open season for people who don't like you, or just in general for people to criticize and to hate and judge that piece of you. And that's just pretty scary, you know, being vulnerable on the internet. So I don't know, who knows if I ever end up going completely public with this new passion project, but it's giving me a lot of joy right now. And that is something I am very, very thankful for, because it is a creative outlet that I truly do need. And it just feels like a door that God has opened for me to kind of be authentic and to process and to share, you know, a piece of myself that I haven't shared before in a format I haven't really done before. So, well, I'm not completely. I mean, I've done the format in some ways, but in a style, I guess I've never done before. So I'm really excited to see where it goes and what happens with it. But for now, that is all you guys get to know about it. But let my own experiences hopefully calm your worries about what you are experiencing, whether it's something similar or different to my own situations. Just know that God loves you and He has a plan for your life. You might not see it today or tomorrow, and sometimes it even takes a lifetime, but there is a plan and He knows what He is doing. So trust that. And even on days you can't trust or it all feels too hard, just know that He's next to you, grieving with you, crying with you, hoping with you. There is no straight path to sainthood, and that's something I constantly have to remind myself of. And to be honest, there's actually no straight path in life either. We all have our own little trail, so to speak. And you know what? Some people's trails might look clear and pretty, they're well groomed, but you don't see the sharp rocks that they're walking on. And then other people's trails might look overgrown, dangerous, and really, really rugged, but you just don't see the beams of sunlight cutting through the thick trees to shine upon that person's face. I guess what I'm saying is, whichever trail you find yourself on, just know that God is with you on that trail. All right, guys, I know that this episode was a lot shorter than I usually have my episodes, but since I am visiting my family, this was kind of a last minute episode. And yeah, I still wanted to put one out, but you know, family still comes first, and this is as much as I was able to do. So really appreciate you guys tuning in, and I appreciate your guys' support and your prayers. Of course, always let me know how I can pray for you, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye, guys. This podcast is produced by Amber Rose and is distributed by Metacortex Publishing. This podcast is copyright by The Religious Hippie. Any previously trademarked or copywritten content is used by permission. Information and opinions in this podcast should not be construed as medical advice. Be sure to visit the official website of The Religious Hippie at thereligioushippie.com or find me on social media for other unique content. Thank you.